That moment, we heard footsteps run up the basement stairs right next to us, then into the foyer, then out of the front door. Clear as day, we all heard the footsteps, then the front door slammed shut. We all looked at each other. Then my sister said, "Oh, is Dad home? I didn't see his car." My mum and I were very confused because we knew that he definitely was not home. Watch this video until the end to hear the terrifying events that transpired when a mother brought a set of antique church benches into her family home. I'm your host, Severed Soul. One evening I was taking a nap. It was probably around 5 to 6 p.m. And in general, this wasn't a great time in my life. But that's a different story entirely. Around the time of the incident I want to talk about, whenever I would go to my bed to try to go to sleep, I would feel something moving around under my mattress. It would be pushing against the underside of my mattress to the point where I would turn my stomach and try to push back. For example, let's say I turned over and made the sign of the cross on my mattress. I would feel this thing imitating me from underneath. It would do it by my feet, then by my head, then a little one, then a big one, faster, slower, etc. It felt like this thing was toying with me somewhat. There were also incidents where I would suffer from sleep paralysis. I would feel the bed moving way more than I would when I was awake in my bed. Sometimes I'd even hear creepy little noises like grunts from a person coming from underneath my bed too. I posted this to a ghost stories subreddit, but I wasn't a spiritual or religious person whatsoever. However, due to my circumstances at that point in my life, I was looking for a sign or something. I was absolutely desperate and just wanted something to believe in. Some kind of hope that things might change, and maybe the angels could do something to help me. I really wanted to know if I could lean on Christianity to change the way my life was playing out. I don't know if this thing attached to me because of my negative energy, but since I found Christianity, things seem to have calmed down. Presence still seems to be there, but I've never experienced anything quite like what I experienced that night. Anyway, back to my sleep. I cannot even begin to explain the feeling of absolute terror I experienced when I heard what I heard that night. It happened like this. I woke up from my nap, and the very second I opened my eyes, the room was filled with the loudest, most blood-curdling demonic scream you could ever imagine. I sat up in my bed feeling like my head was about to explode from the sheer volume of this deafening scream. My heart was pounding in my chest and my brain felt like it was about to burst. No more than a second after the screaming had stopped, I could now hear it in the bedroom at the total opposite side of the house. Then I could hear it downstairs. The scream was moving from room to room all around the house at a speed that wasn't even close to being humanly possible. Everything went quiet for about a minute or so, and I was about to get out of my bed to investigate. Then, boom! As loud as a crack of thunder, that scream was right next to my ear. I swear I could feel the whole room vibrate. I lay back down in my bed and threw my sheets over my head while I sobbed. Thankfully, that was the last time I ever heard that scream. And yes, the house was completely empty. Back when I was in college, I had the most terrifying experience of my life. I mostly suppressed the memory until something reminded me of it recently, and now I can't get it out of my head. Late at night, I would typically walk down a bike path to get to the train tracks with my friend. We would sit on the tracks, watch the moon rise over a lake, and then walk home. However, the last time I ever went to these tracks, something truly terrifying happened to me. To set the scene, the bike path was surrounded by old industrial buildings, mostly with no windows facing the path. There were very few streetlights illuminating the path, so it was very dark. We were walking with our arms linked together, and I was standing on the right. Walking from the other direction in the distance was a man. This in itself was strange, because we never saw anybody else down there. Neither me or my friend made eye contact with the man as he approached us. But as he was passing us, I decided for no real reason to take a glance at him. This is when I saw what I saw. I looked up at him, and we instantly locked eyes. He followed my eyes the entire time he was walking past, and I couldn't look away. It was like I was in some sort of trance. I felt like I'd had all the air sucked out of my lungs, and my whole body tensed up. It wasn't until he passed us and looked away that I gasped for air and quietly said to my friend, "What the fuck?" My friend said, "What happened? Are you okay? I felt your entire body lock up." And I said, "Did you not look at that man?" She said no. It was at this point we both turned around to look again. But before I continue with the story, I need to explain what that man looked like. As soon as we made eye contact, I noticed just how horrifying he looked. He was wearing a primary coloured suit, a light blue jacket, yellow shirt, and red tie. His eyes were wide open, bulging, almost glass-looking, yellow and incredibly bloodshot. His skin was white and waxy, almost wet-looking, like some sort of porcelain. He had this really disgusting toothy grin that I'll never forget. He was smiling so wide you could see all of his teeth. His teeth were yellow, crooked and jagged, and the corners of his mouth almost reached up to his ears when he grinned. As he stared at me with that terrifying grin, I felt like I had no control. The only thing I can compare it to is a ventriloquist doll. All the breath in my lungs had been sucked out of me, and the joy that I had felt had been ripped away. As we looked back, he was still moving down the path away from us, except he was laughing, jumping and skipping. And the way he was jumping was so unnatural. It was like he was a puppet on a string. I couldn't really bring myself to explain to my friend exactly what I'd just seen. Mind you, at this time we were both around 21 years old. I was fairly athletic and was confident in my ability to defend us both. But I was so afraid, I just couldn't bring myself to do anything else. So I asked her, please can we both just run home? So we both ran the entire way back. When we got back home, I was almost in a state of shock. As soon as I regained my composure, I took a deep breath and explained to her exactly what I'd seen. She said, "I'm really sorry, I didn't see him." And I replied, "You have no idea how thankful I am that you didn't see him." To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if we'd both looked and seen his face. I feel like if we didn't have our arms locked with her pulling me along, I would have had no control to keep walking away. I had nightmares about that man for weeks. and couldn't think about anything else during my classes. Eventually, I blocked it out of my memory until one night I was reminded of him. I'm posting this here because I've searched the internet and couldn't find any information about what happened or who that man might have been. I just felt like I'd stared into the face of evil, the face of somebody who had done truly terrible things. I've conducted some research on ventriloquism and found some information regarding its potentially demonic roots. But I've never found any testimony relating to my experience. If you have any information regarding what I might have seen, please let me know. The lack of knowledge I have about that man keeps me up at night, still to this day. I'm hoping that with knowledge, maybe, I can get some closure. Thanks for listening to my story. Okay, my experience is absolutely bonkers and borderline unbelievable to anyone who wasn't there to witness it. My mum likes to collect antiques. I can't lie, it's a little bit of a hoarding issue. Vintage telephones and old chairs that she refurbishes then has no idea what to do with. Things like that. One day, she brought home a set of antique benches from a German church out in the country. The church was built in the 1800s and was no longer in service. It was completely derelict. We lived more towards the city, and my mum passed the church on the way to my brother's house. Those benches were nothing but creepy from the moment they came into our house. They gave off a seriously negative energy. My mum didn't even really have a plan for them. Everyone in the house, including the dogs, ran past the benches, refusing to look at them any time we went down into the basement. Eventually, the dogs wouldn't go down there at all. Everything just felt ominous. My mum brushed us off for a long time, but eventually she admitted to some creepy experiences down in the basement. Creepiness escalated to downright terrifying. My mum was folding some laundry, while my nephew, who my mum was babysitting for at the time, played in a room nearby. I heard a very, very terrifying, almost demonic whisper in my right ear. It felt like it was breathing or even hissing into my ear, intentionally to scare the shit out of me. Whatever it was saying, it definitely wasn't spoken in English. All of a sudden, my mum whimpers. "Cassie, did you just come in here and whisper something into my ear?" I said no. She said, "Oh, maybe I was hearing things." I said, "We both know you weren't hearing things." She said, I know. I said, "I heard it too, Mum. There's something seriously wrong in this house since you brought those benches home." Fast forward a month or so, I was tidying up the office when I saw an absolutely horrifying drawing on the back of a blank envelope. It was a picture drawn in pen of a black humanoid figure with red eyes and writing underneath. The writing said, "In the basement, watching me while I worked." Incredibly concerned and thinking that maybe my mum was possessed by this thing, I literally grabbed a cross and confronted my mum about what the fuck this drawing was. She admitted that she saw this exact humanoid figure watching her in the basement while she folded laundry. She said she kept telling the figure to go away, but it kept showing up. She said she drew the picture and wrote the note so that she could tell my dad what was going on without this entity hearing her. Later that day, my sister came over and said, "I was hoping Dad would be here. I need to have a chat with him. At that moment, we heard footsteps run up the basement stairs right next to us, then into the foyer and out of the front door. Clear as day, we all heard the footsteps, then the front door slammed shut. We all looked at each other. Then my sister said, "Oh, is Dad home? I didn't see his car." My mum and I looked at each other very confused, because we both knew that Dad absolutely was not home. We all looked around the house with knives in hand. The house was empty. Fast forward a few weeks to Halloween. My sister throws these huge Halloween bashes. It's kinda like our Christmas. We absolutely love Halloween and always make an occasion of it. My sister picks a theme every year. There's an entry fee and a competition with a cash prize. 30 to 50 people show up every year. It's always a great night. She decided that this year's theme would be funeral home, and she asked my mum if she could borrow those church benches. I told her that those benches were super fucking haunted, but she just laughed. She jokingly said it would add to the spooky theme. The guests started arriving, and the benches were in her living room facing the fireplace, and the speaker was on the mantel. The music skipped a few times, but this is nothing crazy. It's Bluetooth. But then, after a while, the speaker fell off the mantel. And then it fell off again. And again. Eventually, I moved the speaker away from that mantel. It was creepy, but we all made a few jokes, then forgot all about it. The party was an absolute blast, and at around 1 AM, we decided to order pizza. In my drunken state, I sat down on one of the benches and said, "Hey Siri, find us the nearest open pizza place." This was a mistake. Siri started going crazy. It filled my phone screen with, "Did you say churches? Churches, 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 church, church, God, church." Nobody within earshot had heard me say anything about churches whatsoever. My screen just kept filling with the words churches and church over and over again. I was looking around at everyone in absolute disbelief. They all saw it too. In that moment, my phone screen went white, and the music stopped abruptly. But the music wasn't even playing from my phone. Then, the speaker flew off the table. It was on there pretty secure. There's absolutely no way it could have just flown off the table the way it did. Everybody in that room screamed, like something out of a horror movie. I looked down at my phone, which was now filled with the words, "Demon, demon, demon, devil." We never got our pizza, and those benches were on the curb for the garbage man Monday morning. Once those benches were gone, we never felt a spirit in our home ever again. I ended up moving downstairs into my parents' basement for a few years before I moved out. I never experienced anything down there again. I'm just glad there were so many witnesses to what happened that night, because nobody would have believed it. Thanks for listening to the story. If you have any thoughts on this story, please leave them in the comments section. That brings this video to an end. I really hope those stories give you nightmares. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for a feast of grim and grisly content. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Severed Soul.